if you don't have what it takes to do medicine, then don't do it, because you won't be able to withstand the rigor it comes with. I think humor is a great tool to be able to deal with any kind of adversity, and sometimes, for that matter, even death. She broke down in front of me. She started crying, telling me that she has never been seen or felt or heard in all these years that she was looking after him. I think we are seeing a true epidemic of cancer. I think our generation is getting cancer at least a decade or so earlier than the previous generation, and across the board, all kinds of cancers. And I'm hoping that if your
Time for
viewers
book two.
buy this one, we'll probably get another book. Yeah.
All right, this man is a legend in the neuroscience surgery sphere of things in this country. Definitely somebody who's well known to the point that even people who haven't met him say, yeah, I know who Mazda Turel is. And we're lucky to have many, many common friends. Please welcome my guest of the day, Dr. Mazda Turel, neurosurgeon, Wokhart Hospital, South Mumbai, columnist for Sunday Midday, The Week, and most importantly now, author of Bheja Fry, Heartfelt Stories from a Neurosurgeon's Clinic. The book is out now. It's a juggernaut publication. It's out on all on-ground as well as online stores. From me, Hrishi K, I highly advocate you pick it up and read it. I've read it cover to cover, and it really warms the cockles of your heart. Wonderful to see you. Thank you for rolling by.
Pleasure, Rishi. It's such a joy to be on your show. Every morning we hear you, and you fill our lives with so much of, so much music besides everything else, which really stirs the soul. And we are forever, as a city and country, indebted to what you do. So thank you.
That's very kind of you, but really, I couldn't do this show without the Parsis in my life, which is why I love Parsis so much. My music manager and my promo producer, all the promos that you hear, promotions, the sound bites, all the songs that you hear are done by Kobad Mohabbat Jina. My daily morning wellness expert is Miki Mehta. My car experts are Shapur Kotwal and Hormuz Sorabji. I mean, these are people without whom, the spine of the show would just collapse. And I have so much love. Whenever I have something in aviation to discuss, it's Parvez Damania. It's almost as though I go out searching for wonderful Parsis on a limb, and you're one of them, my friend.
And now your doctor is also Parsi,
Indeed.
so you have nothing to worry about.
Vegas to Vellore. Now, in the introduction to Bheja Fry, you write one of the most disarmingly honest opening lines I've ever heard from a doctor. And I'm going to tease you guys and say, go and buy it. We're not going to tell you literally that. But you do say that the brain may only be your second favorite organ. So, two Bombay boys lose in America at age 18. How did that one summer of indulgence sharpen your hunger to come back, put your head down, and work, study at Grand Medical College?
I mean, when you're at that age and testosterone is pouring out from every orifice of your body, and your parents allow you to go to Vegas, I don't think your brain is your favorite organ. But we were studying medical, we were in medical college at Grant Medical College, and it was one of the greatest opportunities to learn and be over there, because anything and everything legendary has been done at that institute. It's close to 200 years old now, again, set up by a Parsi. And the kind of contribution it has given to medicine, and the who's who of medicine have passed out from its have walked out from its walls. So I mean, I think just sitting over there in awe and wonder, looking at halls in which these lectures were taken, and professors taught us, it really egged us and spurred us to do medicine the right way. It showed us what it means to be compassionate, what it means to be human. But the beauty of Grant Medical College was that it also taught us to have a lot of fun. It was different from the other medical colleges, which were certainly more nerdy and more studious than we were, not to name any of them. But we had lots and lots of fun. And I think we enjoyed looking at patients, we enjoyed doing rounds, we would stay there well beyond our call of duty, and we were really eager to learn, and we had great teachers at the time that allowed this to happen. And for that, I'm eternally grateful to all our teachers who taught us, who inspired us, who made us feel belonged to, who made us belong to everything that they did. And I think that was really, really heartwarming.
You know, when I spoke of all the Parsis who make up the show, I forgot two very eminent ones. Whenever I have something to talk about a building, infrastructure, even heritage, I reach out to Baman Irani from Rustamji and the great Jimmy Mistry. And since you spoke of Grant, it's such a lovely building, man, isn't
It's
it?
fantastic,
It's
yeah.
just so beautiful. And, you know, I hope we're able to keep conserving it, and all the heritage conservationists out there are listening, and it remains the way it is, so pristine. All right, now that we know that, the legacy of being your father's son, was there ever a moment that you wanted to rebel, pick something else, or was the brain always non-negotiable? For those of you who don't know, you know, this is a man who is, well, has legacy. I mean, he talks in the book about being an 8-year-old and his, you know, sitting on his father's lap and his father enjoying a malt and telling him these wonderful stories and, you know, pointing things out to him. So the weight of the scalpel.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would in some sense call it a reverse nepotism, right? But in fact, my father was someone who discouraged me to do medicine. He said, if you don't have the grit and gumption to live life fiercely dedicated to your craft, then might as well not do it. Instead of, nowadays it is a given that a doctor's child will become a doctor at the time. In the previous generation, nowadays, uh, it's not true at all. But he suggested that if you don't have what it takes to do medicine, then don't do it, because you won't be able to withstand the rigor it comes with. But if you're willing to let go and sacrifice everything else and single heartedly devote yourself to the art, to the craft, then by all means, there's nothing greater and more noble than this profession.
I love the fact that, you know, this is the part of the journey that nobody romanticizes, right? He's in CMC Vellore, and he's unsuccessful at clearing an exam. And today he's one of the nation's foremost neurosurgeons. You stayed back another year, you studied further. I mean, you studied harder, I beg your pardon. What do you want to tell all those young doctors who walk into your OPD with their own setbacks?
So, the only thing I tell anybody who asks me for any advice, which is very few people, is never give up. I mean, whatever. I know it's as simple as it sounds, and it's as staid and ordinary as, and you've heard it a million times before. But whatever life throws at you, whatever you face, I think you have to keep going at it very doggedly to be able to withstand the rigors of anybody or anything that comes your way. And I even remember that once I finished my first year of training over there, I wasn't even allowed to study in the hospital library because I was no longer a resident in service over there. So I had to take a little. The option was to come back to Bombay and study here, but I wanted to be away from the distraction of a city like Bombay, and I took up a lodge in Vellore over there and stayed there for a year and studied over there, and then luckily got through the next time.
He also describes the hostel and his first brush with it, which is quite hilarious. You know, and this is only the fifth recipient of the Jacob Chandy Gold Medal in 30 years. Chandy being the father of Indian neurosurgery, who founded the neurosciences department, the first of its kind at CMC Vellore way back in 1949. So he's a modest man. I'm going to do all the give you the essentials to understand how important he is in the scheme of neurosurgery in this country. I love that, you know, there's ambition and there's humility, and it runs parallelly in your writing, which I think is just fantastic. And how you deflate yourself with humor all the time. I don't know. Is it the surgeon in you? Is it the writer in you? Is it the Parsi in you? I don't know.
I think it's the medicine. It's medicine that does that. You know, medicine is a great leveler. The moment you think that you're above and beyond anybody else, you will have a complication that really not only puts you to the ground but sometimes even buries you. So I think that is why it's important to first of all not take yourself too seriously, and even whatever you do, while I say I don't take myself too seriously, I'm pretty sincere at what I do. I'm pretty dedicated to the service of my patients, and I will give my entire being and my entire life to their betterment. But I think I always look at things with a little bit of quirk, with a little bit of humor, because everybody who comes to us is coming to us with a baggage that is completely unknown to them. You know, one fine day you wake up with a diagnosis of a brain tumor, and you don't know what's hit you. And to be able to help them navigate that space, you do require a little bit of humor. You do require to crack a few jokes to lighten up the situation. And eventually, they may not tell you that now, but when they come back, they will come and tell you that, Doc, that conversation really helped me. So, you know, when I talk about being funny, it's very different from being frivolous. You can crack jokes at the expense of an illness, I think, if the patient and you both understand where you're coming from. And that's why I think humor is a great tool to be able to deal with any kind of adversity. And sometimes, for that matter, even death.
You know, he says very poignantly that he felt he truly arrived as an author when a friend sent him a picture of his article in the midday being used as a paper plate for his bhel puri. But I'm just curious to know, do you still write for the Jame Jamshed?
I still write for the Jame Jamshed, but I no longer write for the Midday.
Correct. So I just wonder how you make time for your writing. I mean, there are the two daughters, the work hard rounds, a marriage. When and where does Mazda Turel actually write?
At airports, between cases, before anesthesia, if an OPD patient cancels, wherever there is time. And I'm constantly thinking about what to write next. So when I'm driving to work and back, the thoughts are always surfacing. It's just, and the cases are always there. The material is always all around. So it's just a matter of putting pen to paper or finger to keyboard in today's day and age. But I think you just have to make the time for something that you really like doing. And especially when you travel a little bit, you know, you have a lot of time at the airport, you have a lot of time on flights. Unfortunately, now there's Wi-Fi on aeroplanes, which is another distraction. But I used to write a lot of articles. I could like churn out 4 or 5 articles on a single flight at the time.
The name of the book, for those of you who joined us late, Bheja Fry, is in all on-ground as well as online stores. Please go and pick it up. It's a wonderful book by Dr. Mazda Turel. The title, Bheja Fry, did Juggernaut eat it immediately? Chiki Sarkar, who runs Juggernaut, or did you have to convince them? And you write very eloquently about why you chose it as a title, and I leave you to tell the story of why a brain surgeon's book had to be called Bheja Fry.
You would be surprised if I told you who actually suggested the name. It was your good friend Tina's Nushian who suggested that we call it
Wow,
Bheja Fry.
former editor of Sunday Midday and then editor of the Midday. Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were toying with a couple of things, and there's nothing more colloquial for an Indian audience, though the book I would say has international appeal as well. But you know, Bheja Fry is something that especially Parsis, we keep saying, Bheja no dahi na kar, don't eat my bheja. So, and for a neurosurgeon, where the brain is the organ of uh, the center around which everything revolves, I thought it was a very apt name. And in some sense, this is what life does to us, right? It stirs us up a little bit. It screws with our minds when we're busy making other plans. And I thought that itself is what this book is about. This book is about what happens to us when we're busy making other plans. And I thought it was an apt name to suggest, because Bheja also really is at the core of everything that we do, and it is the brain that is the orchestra of your body. and it governs every single thought, emotion, process, feeling. And I don't think the book would have, my first book would have had a better name
I think so too.
than that.
Wonderfully chosen. The architecture of the book is just wonderful. There are 6 sections, there are 68 stories, and you've actually structured them into consulting room confessions, cuts and bruises, clinical crossroads, cliffhangers, conundrums, curious characters. And my question is, did the structure emerge later in the edit, or was this there right at the beginning, the progression deliberate? And the plot B to that question is, these days, the man who couldn't stop laughing, the husband with a pataka in the throat. How does one think of them? I mean, is it intuitively, or you're watching something, something happens, and you decide the title?
So, very intuitively, these were pieces that I had written over several years, and they all had different titles to them. And I thought of ways to section the book. And when I was reading them all over again and rewriting some of them, I thought that there are certain things that happen in the consultation room that we would bring into a separate section: the fear, the hope, the agony, the trust, the confessions that patients come up with, and that really, um, the conversations that we have with them are real conversations, are heartbreaking conversations, are moving conversations. So I thought I would put that as a section. And then Cuts and Bruises is a section where you actually enter the battlefield, where you're going into the operating theater, where you're removing tumors that bleed a couple of liters, where your blood pressure is crashing. It's cinematic, it's dramatic. It's the beeping of the anesthesia machines, the anesthetist pumping blood, the nervousness amongst the scrub nurses. So all that is palpable in that section. And then there's a very thought-provoking section on clinical crossroads as to what happens to patients when there are several options available as a treatment modality. Sometimes when someone has a very significant brain hemorrhage, do you go all out and try and treat the patient knowing that the outcome's still going to be less than optimal, or do you let them, in the wise words of Paul McCartney, let it be? So, how to have patients hang on to something and how to be with them while they let go. I think that section discusses all of those conundrums that we face in medicine. And the beauty is that there's no right or wrong answer. The beauty is being able to make that decision for you or for your loved ones, knowing that this is the best decision that could have been made at the time. And then there's a really funny section on curious characters. So, as a surgeon, as a doctor in the Parsi community, you get all sorts of patients, primarily Parsi, who are really funny, who are really quirky, who have such charming attributes that you could not stop and not write about them. So every day I'm presented with something that is so heartwarming, and I think that this is something that has to be written. And people need to know about this. You know, people have a certain view and a certain perspective about the world of medicine, and nobody really knows what goes on behind the scene. So this is, in some sense, a behind the scene plus a ringside view of the actual world of medicine. And I wanted to be really honest about the whole thing. Not only talk about our successes, but also talk about our failures as a surgeon, as a medical practitioner, talk about complications of surgery, but also talk about the joys, the elation that you get on saving a life, the reward that you meet a stranger somewhere, like how everybody tells you, it's so good to hear you on radio, and it's such a pleasure to hear your voice, and you make our day better. Likewise, we once in a while bump into people at a wedding, at a party, saying that you won't remember me, but you saved my mother's life. So
Wow.
I think this book is dedicated to all of those stories that really make a real difference in the world, because these are all real stories of real people who've been through a lot. And also, in some sense, I believe that this book might serve as some kind of a self help book to patients going through similar illnesses, because they might be able to relate to the problems they have, the fears that they have, the conversations that they're not able to have with anybody else, the questions they may not be able to ask their own doctor for whatever reason. Oftentimes, patients come to me saying that, listen, we've already seen a doctor, we've already got our answer, but we just want to come and talk to you about it. So, that also, I think, makes a difference. And all these stories, I think, provide some form of hope and talk about the goodness of medicine. People say today, in today's day and age of commercialization, of branding, of corporatization, that medicine has lost its soul and everybody is out there to make money. But I don't think that's entirely true. There are, in fact, most doctors really like taking care of patients and really like treating patients and really do whatever it is in the best interest of the patient.
Well said. Hurrah for our doctors, our surgeons. I'm going to run you through a couple of stories which I really loved from Bheja Fry. Guys, please go get it. Again, Dr. Mazda Turel. The Real Therapist. Now, it's basically about Zain, who had a ruptured aneurysm in Singapore, and his wife, Sanjana, who walked in with a limp from a high-level amputation she suffered as a child. And you write that Sanjana told you, perhaps you could also help me get his life back. He's not just the same anymore. And you end with this line, and I quote, doctors take on the role of being therapists, while in reality it is the doctor who is in therapy. What a lovely line. My question to you is, how often do you find yourself going home heavier than the patient? And what is your release valve on a day like that?
So, I mean, these are really hard patients to deal with. Imagine this girl who walked in with a limp, and I thought that she was the patient to begin with. And that is where our prejudices start, right? You see someone who's older, who's more frail, and you think that they are the patient if they've come with someone younger, and that younger guy might be the patient. So, first of all, we need to remove that veil. And oftentimes, when you start talking to them, you realize what they've gone through in their lives and you really try and help them. And when you drive back home, that's when all these conversations come back and they really strike you as being heavy. They really drain you emotionally because you've given so much of yourself to try and be with them, be present, understand their problem without really judging whatever is going on, and then try and provide solutions. So, besides discussing the surgical option, you have to discuss how to get the guy a job again, how to uh, make him reliable in work again, make him give him back his livelihood, and at the same time have a patient hearing for the partner because the caretaker also takes a brunt. I still remember, and I'm sorry I'm digressing, but I had a patient who had brain cancer, and his wife, he had come with his wife, and he told me that मैं मेरे बेटे के लिए जीना चाहता हूँ. And I'm looking at, why only beta? Look at your wife here. She's the one who's toiling day in and day out, and you're not concerned that she might lose you, and you're only concerned about the son. And she broke down in front of me. She started crying, telling me that she has never been seen or felt or heard in all these years that she was looking after him. And she was just assumed to supposed to be taking care of him. So these are the real stories, and when you in some sense help a few of these patients, you go home really wondering what life is all about, what everybody is really going through. And my release is when I come home to a really happy and fun family, and I paint with my daughters, and we go out for a walk after dinner. So that's a lot of fun. And touchwood, I have a great set of friends that constantly are always available to me whenever I need a break.
How lovely. Braveheart. In Braveheart, this is part of Bheja Fry, you write about a 32-year-old pilot who walks in and says, in the gentlest possible voice, I have breast cancer in both my breasts. Then a PET scan finds a separate primary tumor in her brain. And you cite a Financial Times piece about the unexplained rise of early onset cancers in the under 50s, and you call it an epidemic. And you're seeing this from a neurosurgeon's or neurological point of view from a front row in Mumbai. Yeah. Are you genuinely concerned about the cancer trends that you're noticing in young Indians, especially in metros like Bombay? And what do you tell your own loved ones, your family, your friends about diet, lifestyle, screening?
I think we are seeing a true epidemic of cancer. I think our generation is getting cancer at least a decade or so earlier than the previous generation, and across the board, all kinds of cancers. And probably one, it has got to do with your genetics, and that you can do nothing about. Either you got the genetic lottery or you don't. You can abuse your body left, right, and center, and nothing will happen to you if your genetics are okay. But if you are on the wrong end of the rope, you're screwed. But we have a lot of epigenetic factors that can be modified by the environment, and that I think plays a big role in at least causing a mutation in the gene that is responsible for causing cancer. So smoking, for example, uncontrolled alcohol, the pollution, the exposure to plastics, all of those things, unprocessed food, the excess consumption of sugar, all of those things in some sense are tipping the balance in some way, especially in the brain. The brain is an organ that doesn't revolt instantly unless you have a massive hemorrhage or you have a stroke. But sometimes in the brain, what happens, it tolerates insult for a long time and then it gives way. Today, for example, something as simple as sleep. Nobody really sleeps 7 to 8 hours. Everybody prides themselves in being able to function with 3 to 4 hours of sleep. And while in the short run, when everybody is chasing their dreams, it might work for them, but I'm sure at some point the body will give way. So it's the bottom line is there's no rocket science. I mean, this is what our yogis used to do centuries ago: eat healthy, sleep adequately, and go about doing what you love doing. I think if you're able to follow basic environmental advice, you should be okay.
There's another one which I love, which is called I Had a Dream. The Pope, a midnight phone call, a dream he didn't want to wake up from. Alessandra from Rome, in a thick Italian accent, telling Mazda Turel that she wants him to perform a surgery on the Pope. And it's surreal and it's deeply detailed till your daughter jumps on you and says, "Wake up, Daddy, it's Sunday." Where does that piece come from? I mean, is that your writer flexing imagination after years of being shackled to clinical case files? I don't know. Or again, is it the Parsi in you imagining the ultimate cross-faith healing moment?
Uh, I mean, you won't believe it, but it's true that I actually had that dream.
I don't doubt it.
I had that dream, and I could remember it so vividly. I usually don't remember my dreams, but I remember it so vividly. And while I was operating the next morning, I was telling my colleague and my assistant about it while we were operating on another case, that I had this dream and this is what happened and this is what happened. And throughout the operation, I narrated the entire dream to him. And then I thought, hey, this might be a good thing to write about. And that's how the story came about. But you speak about operating on people with different faiths. I've operated on a guy called Christ. I've operated on a guy called Muhammad. I've operated on Shiva. I've operated on Parvati. I've operated on Ganesh. So
Secular India, ladies and gentlemen.
the whole spectrum, and you realize that all of these people come from different beliefs, different faiths, different culture, but illness has no bar. Illness has no boundary, and everybody's blood looks the same, and everybody deals with problems in a similar fashion. Some deal with it with fear, some deal with it with guilt, some have a slight sense of humor to be able to deal with it. And at the end of the day, I think this book also tries to tell everybody that eventually we are all one. We're fighting silly wars, we're doing all sorts of rubbish and harming the environment, but we don't realize that it's ourselves that we're damaging in the process.
The Mumbai connection, I love people who write about this city. When I was a little kid, my favorite read used to be Behram Contractor, Busy Bee, God bless his soul. And then Bachi Auntie, Bachi Karkaria used to write such wonderful columns. And then she moved to Calcutta, started writing about Calcutta. But really, the Mumbai connection, all those, those columns, the pieces you wrote for the Midday, the Week, you literally use the city as a scalpel, if I could call it that. And I'm going to quote again from his work. You've described the skull as a piece of architecture where renovation work happens with the owner still living within, like a Bombay building. I mean, you've written about the other Parsi colonies' anti-hawking protest at Five Gardens, Udwada at midnight on New Year's, BMC potholes versus your rural repairs. Which Mumbai neighborhood, if you had to pick one, feels closest to your cerebellum?
I mean, it has to be the other Parsi colony, right? It's the place where I grew up. It's green, it's warm, it's got the largest collection of Parsis in the world. Um, my children usually don't like to walk with me in the night after dinner because they say that every time we go to walk, we bump into 10 people, and then
Yeah.
and then you have to stop to talk to them. So I think home is where your heart is. And once upon a time, I used to cycle to work, and when I used to come back and take a right turn into the colony, you can actually feel the temperature dropping by 2 degrees, and it's such a green haven that it almost is a stress buster. It takes away all the heaviness of your work day, and you can just beautifully come back and relax to it.
I want to tell you a little bit about Dr. Mazda Turel. I mean, you know now the CMC Vellore story, the Grand Medical College story. But he went to Toronto Western Hospital for a skull base in neuro-oncology, to Rush University in Chicago for minimally invasive and complex spine surgery, and then to Huashan Hospital, Fudan University in Shanghai for cerebrovascular and bypass surgery. My question is, all Indian doctors who get that triad of fellowships do not come back home, Mazda. What pulled you back to Mumbai, to a work-hard OBT, instead of a green card and a tenured facility post abroad? Do you regret it on a bad Monday? I don't know.
Not at all, not at all. Considering what state America is in right
Yeah.
now, no chance. I think for me, it's more about the people than the place. I think it's the people who I'm connected to, who I'm so deeply rooted to. My family, my entire extended family is a couple of hundred people. So, and the friends that you grew up with, the colony that you live in, and the need and urge to serve your own people first. You've been granted so much by the community, by your city, by your country. So I think it is our honor and responsibility to serve our people, to take care of them. I know a lot of people need taking care of, and you'd say, oh, why don't you go to Africa and serve that population? We do a few camps as well over there. But I think we have to first take care of our people, and then, I mean, the craft and the art and the field allows you to treat patients globally, to be able to lecture globally, to be able to give talks at international conferences. But I still think that for me as a person, I'm quite grounded in my own place.
I'm going to pick a couple of other chapters. Two chapters stood out for what I call sheer surgeon frustration. Let me explain this, yeah? Nitwits, for those of you who haven't bought the book, this is your opportunity. Go and get Bheja Fry. Nitwits is about Rahul the biker who ignored your urgent surgical advice and lost bladder function before being rushed in at 3 a.m. And Mazda ends it by telling him that he's working on a possible vaccine for stupidity. Babaji Zindabad is about Vivek's family choosing alternative medicine over post-operative chemo and radiation for a grade 3 glioma. Now, both are written with humor, but I can feel that the frustration is real. And really, what is it that you want to say to the WhatsApp forward and Babaji, Google, and now even GPT generation, who've found a way to constantly tell doctors what they're doing? And you've got to face this with grace rather than exasperation, right?
Yeah, I think it's really difficult sometimes when you give honest advice. This is a young guy who had a very large disc herniation with severe back and leg pain. And while most often these things get better with medicine and physio, there is a certain section that you can actually smell that is going to have a problem. And that is when you advise them, listen, have surgery because this could be catastrophic. And they say, most people think that doctors are out there to make money, they just want to cut, and they have all these misconceptions about doctors. And also, that's one reason to write the book. And this guy was advised surgery, didn't listen, came in almost paraplegic with loss of bowel and bladder function. And then we had to operate on him in the middle of the night. And while you feel for someone, you're also so angry at them. You feel like taking a gong and hitting it on their head as to why would you not trust someone who is looking out for you in all earnesty. And there was this other chap who had a massive brain tumor who came in a comatose condition, almost near dead. We removed the tumor. It was a high grade cancer. We told him we can control this with radiation and chemo. But they said, now that he's well and you've taken care of it, now let us do what we want to do. And then year after year, the tumor grew, and still they continued some alternative medicine until he came back 3 years later, again unconscious in a hospital. And most of these things, patients come back is exactly one day before you're going to plan vacation, or just when you have to go for your child's concert, or just, and then you have to cancel all of that. So those personal uh, sacrifices that you make, they don't exasperate you as much as what it really feels to be able to get the correct diagnosis for them and to help them in a timely fashion. And when something is potentially easily reversible in a simple elective fashion, why would you not opt for it? I mean, it just completely sometimes beats my mind to think what people are thinking.
All right, the last chapter and why you saved it for the end. For those of you who've tuned in late, Dr. Mazda Turel is my guest of the day. He's neurosurgeon, Wokhart Hospital, South Mumbai, columnist of great repute. Loved his work in the Sunday Midday and the Week. He continues to write in the Jami Jamshed. Author of Bheja Fry, that's the book you need to get into your life. Heartfelt Stories from a Neurosurgeon's Clinic. It's out on all on ground as well as online stores. And this particular last story, The Grown Up Soulmates, it's basically two Parsi friends who ran printing presses in Fountain, Naomi and Philly. They called each other every night at 8:30 sharp for 5 decades, and then on the day Philly died unexpectedly, Homie quietly passes away too, before anyone can break the news. It's the only chapter, Mazda, in the book where there's no surgery, there's no MRI, there's no scalpel. Why did you choose to end Bheja Fry with that story? And is that what you want readers to walk away with? Not the tumors, not the aneurysms.
Absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think this book is about human connection at the end of the day. I think we are all deeply connected to one another on some plane. And there are certain people who are even more deeply connected to each other at different levels. And I think that is what this book, that is what the soul of this book is. That at the end of the day, all we need is someone to walk with us, someone to walk us home, and someone to be there by our side, even when we think we don't need them. And this is such a beautiful story, but I have seen this on more than one occasion personally in my life. We had a lady who was 95 years old, admitted in the hospital for palliative care because we knew that she was going to pass. And her husband, who was looking after her, absolutely hale and hearty, was in the hospital with her for 2 weeks. She passed, and 3 hours later, he had a heart attack and died.
Wow.
And they were married for 75 odd years. So, I mean, there are endless and numerous stories of why it's so important to be human, it's so important to be connected to people. And I think that no amount of technology that we are facing, and everybody is now isolating themselves with the screen, with WhatsApp, Chat GPT, but nothing will ever be able to replace the human connection. And in sometime I think life will come a full circle where we will probably be detached from all this and be willing to talk to one another. And I think that, in my honest opinion, is the best form of healing.
Is there a story you left out and you look back and say, my God, I could have put that in?
Actually, we've got several of them. And I'm hoping that if your
Time for
viewers
book two.
buy this one, we'll probably get another book. Yeah.
My last question is, I mean, you write in Bheja Fry that a neurosurgeon works in millimeters but lives with uncertainties. In your daily life, how do you emotionally carry that contradiction? I mean, you need to be technically precise in the operating room, Mazda, while knowing that biology, fate, and recovery are never fully in your control. I find that crazy. I mean, my job doesn't have that contradiction.
It's an absolute dichotomy to deal with. And that is why the brain continues to remain such a mysterious organ. And that is why medicine itself continues to remain so unpredictable. You could be the best doctor in the world, but still not continuously guarantee a result on a reproducible basis, because tumors are different, biology is different, how people's body reacts to different things is different. You do the same operation on two people, one person's having chai the next morning and the next person's on a ventilator. So, however, in today's day and age, with advancement, with technology, we are still able to guarantee good results more than 98% of the times. But you have to realize that everybody comes with their own fate. And whatever you try to do and how much ever you try to take credit for, you can't really alter it. And that's what keeps you humble and that's what keeps you human. That you think that you have control, but the fact, if you're smart enough, you know that that's only an illusion of control that you have. And that's why the art of practicing medicine still remains so mysterious and so joyful at the same time.
Please go get it. Mazda Turel's Bheja Fry. Follow him on Instagram. Great man to follow. Mazdaturel. It's one word. So start following him immediately. Thanks very much for rolling by. This is such an enjoyable session with you. And see you soon.
I had a great time, Rishi. Thanks so much and keep doing what you're doing. It's giving us more joy than anything else in the world.
Thank you, Mazda.
94.3 Radio 1.